Well, hello to our participants who are here. I'm sorry about the little technical hiccup we're having. I'm Dan Stewart, founder of Happy Grasshopper, and with me is my friend, Chris Drayer. How are you, Chris?
Well, I'm super, Dan. How are you doing? Thanks for
Doing really well.
good to see you, man.
Likewise. It's always a pleasure. So like the whole rest of the world, we're working remotely. So welcome to my detached garage, which is temporarily Happy Grasshopper headquarters. And Chris, are we in your basement today? Where are we?
Yeah. You are at 6,000 feet just outside of Golden, Colorado in my lovely basement. So
Nice. It
really
sounds like,
feeling fortunate that we got the basement done before the pandemic. So that worked out well.
yeah. Yeah, good point. Good point. I see there's a whole lot of me on the screen right now, folks. We're going to get that cleaned up here. We're having an issue getting this live on Facebook right now. So Brian Rail, a member of my team, is sorting that out in the background. And if you'll bear with us here for just a few minutes, we'd like to officially kick things off as we know for sure we're broadcasting. In the meantime, just a little bit of housekeeping. Chris and I have known each other for, I'm going to say 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. It feels like much longer, of course, but it's only 7, 8, 9 years. The point I'm trying to make in bringing that up is whenever I have a chance to invite someone to participate in a webinar, whenever I get invited to participate in another webinar, it always seems to go much better and be a lot more fun for the audience when there's a relationship there, right? So I bring that up because everything that we do in our lives, every single thing that we get to experience and enjoy, it's almost always more fun when we do those things with friends. So Chris, I want to thank you for being here, definitely.
Oh, thanks, Dan. Yeah, I was going to say it's been more than 10 years that I've been fortunate enough to know you.
Not possible.
When did Happy Grasshopper launch?
Yeah, it was 2011. So
Okay, so yeah, nine years.
Can't be 10 years. Yeah,
I was going to say it was at a REDSO event when we first met.
Could be
down in Atlanta. I missed that event. That was a good event. But yeah, it's been fun to grow with you and watch you guys accelerate and dominate the world in a very nice manner.
Well, thank you. So people who are here, the audience, you guys who are watching this, please go ahead and chime in something. Raise your hand, say something in the chat. Let us know that you can see us and hear us. We always want these sessions to be interactive. So the more engagement that you provide for us, the better off we'll be. And I'm going to lead off here by welcoming Amy and Andy and Asma and Barry and David and Deborah and Donna Joe. Hello, Donna Joe. Dilma, John, Joseph, Karen, Laura, Lori, Michael, Michelle, Robert Allen. Hi, good to see you're here. Ryan, Sally, Sean, Sherry, Steve Reese, my man Steve Reese is in the house. Love it. Tim Burrows. Tim, it's good to see your name there on the screen. Todd Jorgensen, excellent. Valerie Blank, very cool. Zelda Greenberg. So there we go, A to Z. Okay, so Brian, you're giving me the cue here to try to go live.
Go live again.
Okay, we're going to try to do that right. It says stop live stream when I click on the button. So I will stop the live stream and we'll give this a shot again.
Facebook just doesn't want to play nicely with you guys today. It's envious of your hair.
Oh, stop, Maya.
Brian Steve actually was commenting on your hair as well there.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
in the chat.
I don't know what to say. I can grow some hair.
It looks good.
All right, so let's see. It's still spooling for me like it was before, but out of respect for the people who are here, I just don't want to waste any more of their time waiting. So let's dive in. Let's get down to business. Let's have a good chat about what we can do right now in this environment, right? Post-COVID, pre-COVID, who knows, right? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get better? We have protests, we have riots, we have social unrest, we have all sorts of things that are going on in the world, and yet people still have to live somewhere. right?
Yeah.
And that means there are people who need to buy homes and there are people who need to sell them. So the purpose of us being together today is to give you guys some solid, actionable tips that you can put to work immediately in order to go find listings, not like tomorrow or next week, but literally now. So the stuff that you get from this session today, you'll be able to use right away. Does that sound cool, Chris?
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
Let's over deliver.
So I know that, Chris, you're super well known. REValuate is super well known. But if you wouldn't mind, could you take a moment and just let everybody know what REValuate does?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. So the 30 seconds is we identify who is most likely to move. That wasn't even 30 seconds.
And you need like 4.5 seconds.
No, previously we've been on projects where with companies where I rated and ranked real estate agents. And then we worked on rating and ranking actual real estate. And now we rate and rank prospects, right? So that typically looks like working with an individual agent where they give us their database of maybe 500, maybe 5,000 contacts. And we're going to score them and tell them who in that database is going to move in the next 6 months.
Yeah, see, so that's super awesome, because I know a lot of the names that I see here that are attending are members of Happy Grasshopper, right? So you have your sphere, your past clients, you've got a database already loaded in our system. What REValuate can do is indicate for you which of those people, who of those people are likely to move in the near term. So I think that's super valuable, right? I mean, that's a good thing. It'd be really good to know that. So I'm glad that we're able to help share that message a little bit for you, Chris.
I appreciate it.
In terms of how to do that, like if we break down these steps for people, there's a lot that happens behind the UI, right? There's a lot of data that has to be gathered. It's got to be crunched. It's got to be turned into something that can be actionable for you. And, my personal view about technology is that it should make our lives easier, right? And I think that rather than sifting through all the people who happen to live in an area or all the people who happen to be in your database, if you can get some additional insight that tells you who's going to be likely to move, it's great info to have. So,
well, data by itself is boring and ugly, or to some people it's even scary, right? And so while, yeah, you want it to be efficient and you want it to be seamless as an individual, agent or part of a team or anything, you don't want to have to touch the data, because that doesn't feel like productive time. And so, same with Happy Grasshopper, the automation and getting things to work for you in the background is really what you want to have happen, so that you can be more efficient and you can have good conversations with people, which a chatbot can't do, right? So that's what we really want to help with, is teeing up those conversations, and we can do that best if we can isolate those who are most likely to move, and if we can then message them and get them to engage, that's what we're shooting for, right?
Right. Yeah. So tip number one, right? If we're going to go about getting some listings, it'd be great to run it through a service like REValuate, so you can figure out which of those contacts in your database are likely to be thinking of selling. So that's a pretty easy tip. And, Chris, if you could mention that just a little bit about your process, so people know where they can go if they choose to do that.
Yeah. So the first thing that we realize is a lot of people get leads or collect information from, well, it used to be open houses, right? Or from lead capture forms or wherever the soccer team, but they get a lot of junk in their database. Yep. And that could be, the Bart Simpson email addresses. Right. That could be something with profanity in the email address.
Die, Santa, die at AOL.com. Like, really nasty stuff.
Right. But people also put like Airbnb in there, and there's info at email addresses and stuff in there. So as far as our process goes, the first thing that we do is to clean all that junk out and really essentially shrink the database. Let's clean it up. we typically remove, so people don't need to feel bad about having crud in their database. That's typical.
No, it's going to get in.
Yeah. So, but cleaning it out, we can typically remove about 16% of the database that's just junk. And some of that junk is other real estate agents, because you're probably not going to be selling a house to another real estate agent across town. So probably don't need them in that particular database. So we pulled them out and go ahead.
Yeah, I would say across town, probably not. And yet I know a lot of agents who live in resort markets. They're like a big chunk of their business is this referral relationship.
Totally a different data set, right? You want to have those over here as your referral partners.
Yeah. Well, this is a good segue into the second tip, right? Because even if you have the very best content available, if you're sending the wrong message to the wrong audience, it's not going to work. You can have the best call to action, the best call to conversation, the best content to generate a listing. And if you send it to people who are looking to rent a home, it's not going to do you any good at all, right? So there's got to be some effort that's paid to simply organizing a database. And, you know, my mindset here is really clear. I've been teaching this for almost a decade now. There are only really two kinds of people. They know us or they don't. Okay, so that brand new lead, they don't know you. Your past clients, your sphere, they definitely know you. And I believe that the best listing opportunities come from people you already have relationships with. That's what we see in our business. It's what we see in our members' business over the years. So I would recommend that as you're thinking of taking steps today to generate listings with the people in your database, you begin by focusing on people who already know you. Okay, and we'll break down some strategies here for that. But I'm curious, Chris, do you have any data to share with us about things you're seeing in your membership that have been particularly effective for them?
Well, certainly it's this whole thought process of if this, then that, right? So tailoring the message to the right person at the right time. And again, like we just talked about, automatically. So if we deem them from a REValuate standpoint, more likely to move, there's a different message that you want to send to them than if there is no chance that they're going to be moving, or if they just moved. That's a totally different conversation. Would you agree?
I would agree, and I'd take it a step further, right? Because let's say we've got a data set that says the people who own these homes at these particular addresses are definitely going to move. How would it feel if you're those people and you get a message from a stranger that says, according to the data, it looks like you'll be ready to sell your home?
Yeah.
Right? That feels really creepy, right?
Yeah.
It feels really Big Brother-ish. So
data doesn't cause people to move.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people and they've never said, oh, the data made me move.
We are really happy here. And yet the data said it's time to go. So we're out. Like,
sorry, hon.
Yep. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, it's life events, right? Life events cause people to move.
Life events cause people to move for sure. And I'm bringing this up because I want to talk about the sorts of messages that are likely to be effective with people who are identified by REValuate as being ready to move.
Yeah.
Okay. So, think about it. Those of you who prospect expireds and withdrawns, for example, you can call someone whose listing has expired or who's withdrawn their listing, and they expect that you have that data. Like their home was for sale and now it's not. So it's not going to be a surprise to them that they're getting a call from a real estate agent asking about that.
Yeah.
And yet, if I'm just quietly living my life, and maybe internally I'm thinking, it's getting to be time to sell, and I get messaging that says something along the lines of, if it's too closely aligned with that thought process, it's going to create a problem. It's going to seem very Big Brother-ish. It will turn people the wrong way. So a technique that I like to teach is that if we can join the conversation someone's already having, it can be very effective. That only works if they're seeking you out. If you're cold prospecting them and you enter the conversation they're already having in their brain, that's problematic almost all the time, okay? So let's talk about the kinds of messaging I would suggest for these particular
Yeah,
leads.
I'm really curious how you would approach this for sure.
Yeah, okay. So we've got people that we suspect of being ready to sell their home.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know for certain that they are, right? And yet we also know that the prevailing psychology among human beings is that we tend to help people when they ask us for help.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to send an email, if I were to send a voicemail drop, if I were to send a written letter, the perspective I would recommend taking with these leads would be to ask for help. So, you know, my voicemail might go something like, and guys, a word about voicemail, it's got to sound super organic. If it sounds like, hey, this is Dan Stewart, listing agent, calling you because it's time to list your home, people are going to hang up instantly. It sounds like a recorded commercial.
So stay away from the script. Yeah.
I think a script is okay if you can read it in a way that it feels organic.
Not a radio announcer. Okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a radio announcer. And for total clarity, guys, if you make a mistake as you're recording this voicemail drop, that's totally fine. You leave voicemails probably every day of your life where you make a mistake and it sounds organic, and that's okay, right? So a message like, hi, my name's Dan. We don't know each other yet. I'm reaching out because I need some help. I'm a local real estate professional. There are a lot of people that want to live in your area. If you know anyone in your neighborhood who'd be willing to sell, please just give me a call. I'd really appreciate it.
Oh
Here's
man,
my number.
that's great.
Right?
That's great. Now, has this been used by some of your members already? Do you know that it's Yeah.
Yeah, very effectively. So asking for help goes over so much better, particularly when you have context. Like, you know, I've worked with a lot of your neighbors and I need some help from the neighborhood right now. Do you know anyone who'd be ready to sell? Like, if you can put your message in context with their daily reality, give them some kind of connection to you, some kind of rapport build statement, it works effectively. Now, cold emailing. Let's talk about this for a moment, because there are a lot of companies like Coal Information, for example. You could pull these great lists of people who live in a neighborhood. Like if you want to build a farm area and you want to get email addresses and phone numbers of everyone who lives in that subdivision, well, you can pull that information. It's out there and it exists. And yet if you start just cold emailing that list, you're going to get a lot of complaints. Like, it's really going to hurt your reputation and your deliverability. In some cases, it's even possible that Google will penalize you. So, you know, in the US, we have something called the CAN-SPAM Act, which is rarely enforced. It's Google that kind of puts the teeth in people who choose to engage in spammy behavior. So, you know, they can go as far as to remove a domain from search. Imagine that. Imagine having invested all this time in building your web presence, your SEO strategies, which take months and years to really accrue, all of a sudden get erased because Google says, oh, the people at that domain send a lot of spam, so we don't want their website to be found in search, right? So the days of that kind of Wild West activity are past for email, and they're approaching for text messaging. So one of the things we do at Happy Grasshopper is send text messages. And, you know, I don't know about you, Chris, do you get spam text almost every day now?
Yeah, I'm pretty ready for regulation to come in on that.
Yeah.
That is certainly, I'm sure most of the audience is pretty irritated by that stuff too. I mean, it's a valid tool.
So raise your hand, audience. Do you get more garbage text than you want? Ding, ding, ding. I'm sure you do. A lot of people get that garbage in their phone every day. I'm getting election messages from both the Trump campaign and the Biden campaign. I'm getting, as a business owner, PPP messages every single day, the payroll protection plan.
Yep.
You know, I'm getting these messages via text, which, you know, if you look at the data for text messaging, it's something like a 96% open rate. So there's a school of thought that, oh, that open rate is so great, that's amazing. And yet here we are, professional marketers, business owners, talking about how irritated we are to get those messages.
Open rate is not the right measurement of text messages.
Yeah.
I don't know why anyone would say that, oh, well, that proves that this works, right? That can't be
because they're selling text messages.
Oh, no, I get it. Hey, this stat's good. Let's push it.
That's exactly right. 96%. It's awesome. Let's go.
That's way better than another percent. Yeah.
Some other percent. Well, so there's a time and a place though, right? A lead is captured. A text message going out automatically to that lead is fantastic, right? A text message to your past clients in your sphere on their birthday, on a holiday, on the anniversary of their transaction, like all of that feels great.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a time and a place to do it. And I'm bringing it up here because I would not recommend that people say, well, I've got this list and I want listings, so I'm going to send text messages to a bunch of strangers. I would prefer that you use the voicemail drop for that rather than sending a text. And of course, direct mail can work well for that sort of thing too. If you're already farming that area, you can just have a send that's focused on that.
Market to people the way you want to be marketed to, right? Like conversationally and not robotic. And if it's something that is irritating me about that text message that's not appropriate and not timely, then yeah, it's a fail. And so you got to kind of be looking at yourself, I would think, to say, is this a good fit? Is this going to work? And then yes, it will drive leads.
Now, I mean, just to put it in a nutshell, the reason we get irritated by the text is because it interrupts whatever it is that we're doing. Like, ding, our train of thought is shattered. The conversation we're having is shattered. Our attention is pulled away by that.
Yeah.
And you want to be cautious of that as a marketer. So the use cases that I know work would be immediate lead response during normal waking hours. Just because someone registers on your website at 2 a.m. doesn't mean you need to send them a text at 2 a.m., right? You're probably not up ready to take care of them. So you want to have it set up to do that appropriately. Second, I would say that if you're sending text messages to your past clients in Sphere for things like birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, that's fantastic, right? And you can do that en masse. For example, from our system, you can write one text message, you can send it to that audience of people, and then you'll immediately start getting replies from them. So you can use that as a great conversation starter. Now, carrying this concept a little bit further, I've said earlier that one great way to generate listings is from your past clients in Sphere. So, right now, if you're a Happy Grasshopper member, inside the text message area of your account, we've put some messaging there that's ready for you to send that you can use to generate listings with. So, it's messaging that asks for help, right? Very similar to the voicemail script I read, would be a text message approach that says something like, hey, Chris, if you have a minute, I could really use a hand, right? People reply to that. If they know you, they go, sure, what's up? And then you reply, I'm looking for someone in your neighborhood who's thinking of selling. Do you know anyone who'd be willing to move right now? Like,
man, it's so simple. And I can see myself responding to that, right? Like that makes sense. If I know the person.
So many things are simple, right? It's simple to take vitamins. It's simple to do some exercise every day. And yet most people don't do those things, right? We need some help to get these things done. So, that's our purpose at Happy Grasshopper, is to make it just effortless for our members to be able to send that sort of stuff. And a word of caution, like you mentioned automation before. There's a lot of things we do that we automate. Mm-hmm. But sending that sort of text message to your sphere would be a mistake to automate. That would be like knocking on the door and not being there when they show up to answer, right? You've got to be there in that moment, agreeing to send that message because it's a text. People are going to reply right away.
Right.
So, if you're not there to engage in those conversations, you shouldn't send it. And I'll also word of caution. You might have 1,000 people in your sphere. Do not send 1,000 people a message all at one time. You'll have way more response than you can handle. In my account, I never send more than 100 texts at a time because I can't carry on that many conversations. The response that you get can be overwhelming. So I would say this is something you need to calendar block for yourself. You need to set an appointment with yourself to send these messages.
We used to talk a lot about, being authentic and not, and it's definitely not authentic if it's 2 a.m. It's definitely not if it's, something that you can't then if they respond and you can't reply back. I mean, that is taking that credibility that you had that got that initial conversation going and flushing it down the toilet, because
push it away.
Yeah. That was more eloquent. Pushing it away is better than my bathroom humor. Sorry.
Come on, get out of the basement, man. Come to the garage. It's so much nicer in the garage.
Indoor plumbing.
Yeah, crazy, unbelievable. We've got a question from Tim Burrows, and he's asking, he would like to know about how many data points you guys are analyzing. So his question, I'll read it to you, is how many data points does REValuate evaluate the leads to determine the chance of listing? And how are those leads ranked?
That's cool. So that is a great question. Thanks for that. That came from some marketing from another company that got purchased by Remax. That's one of their talking points is we have X number of data points that we look at. But the reality is every single contact in your database is going to pull different amounts of data and information. And from our standpoint, it's constantly evolving. We're trying to improve the algorithm and continue to work and get better, and it continues to learn. So while I may get 1,000 pieces of data back on one day for Dan, a few weeks later, I might get more or I might get less. So it's constantly evolving per contact over time also, in addition to the entire algorithms getting smarter as we go along. And then I think the second part of the question was how are they ranked, or what? Say that again, Dan.
I'll scroll back to that. Yes, how are those leads ranked?
So they're ranked on a 0 to 100 scale, and what we call them is very likely movers. So once that contact receives enough input from us that we believe that they are now likely to move, the score continues to climb, they pass that 80 threshold. And this is actually where the integration with Happy Grasshopper through Zapier works, right? So once it hits 80 or above, we deem them very likely to move in the next 6 months. And that tells Happy Grasshopper, hey, this prospect is now more likely to move. And then from what we were talking about earlier, if this, then that, that's where that kind of kicks off from. So what would happen at that point when we, ideally, what would happen when we identify this person as likely to move? And I'll get into what causes that, what causes them to get the score up in a couple minutes. But what would you do at that point, Dan, once their score goes above an 80, that we deem them likely to move in the next 6 months?
Yeah, I think that's the time to start sending those ask for help messages about, do you know anyone who's thinking of moving? Because that's a different approach, right? That's coming alongside them rather than coming directly at them. And if you approach with that direct approach here for people who don't know you, that you don't have a relationship with, their defenses come up immediately. Whereas if you simply ask for help, the internal psychology is one where they're much more likely to give you the information that you need. So yeah, I think that's the right approach there, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Determine who those people are, and then we send the appropriate messaging for them. So we got a few more questions coming in. One's a quick, easy Happy Grasshopper question. Is there an additional text charge to use this service on HG? And Valerie, the answer is maybe. It depends on the type of account you have. So we have members who've been with us almost 10 years. And, I've never increased the pricing for those members. So if you're one of those really old subscribers that's been with us a long time, you would have an additional fee to use this. If you're a more recent subscriber, you would not. Now, we have some clients who send a lot more texts than others. So we sell them in lots of 1,000. If you need to add 1,000 text messages to your account, we do that for a charge of $49. And then those stay within your account for as long as you need until they're used up. So I hope that helps. So let's see here. Sally Roberts is asking you a question. I'm getting a phone call. That's interesting. Did you hear that?
Yeah, we could hear that. That was good.
Okay.
You want to take that?
Yeah, I'm not doing anything right now. Sure. So Sally Roberts asked, can you evaluate folks who are considering buying a vacation or second home?
Yeah. May I share a quick slide here, Dan? Would that be all right?
Absolutely. Do you have the ability to do that?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, I am adding that capability for you now.
Yeah, so we get this question a lot for people in resort communities and coastal properties and mountain properties and such. We get that a lot here locally. And so I want to show you the slide.
You should be able to share your screen now.
Cool. All right, are you able to see the screen there, Dan?
I am.
Cool. So what we look for, these are called life event triggers, and this goes to the other kind of question earlier as well. There are specific things that cause people to move, and it's not the data, right? Mm-hmm. It happens to be these life event triggers. Real estate agents already know this intrinsically, but we call them the data Ds: death, divorce, diapers, diamonds, diplomas, downsizing, the daily grind, discretionary income, and even dumpsters. These things indicate with a high degree of likelihood that someone is going to move within a certain period of time. And as you notice, discretionary income there, or mm-hmm. people getting a job, when people buy second homes, they typically have some sort of windfall or something happening that has caused them to want to go and do that. And so absolutely is the short answer. We definitely look for people that are in a situation where they can buy a second home. That is a pretty good segment of movers, actually. So I'd throw that slide up there for that.
I like it. Thanks for sharing that. That's good stuff. So again, folks, I see some more questions are coming in. You're always welcome to ask these, and we'll get to them as we go. So we've covered two tips so far. We've got one to go here, and then I think we'll probably even throw some bonus tips at you because we like to do that kind of stuff. So first would be to evaluate services like REValuate. I mentioned Chris as a personal friend. I believe in their brand. I believe what they're doing, and I'm happy that we have this integration of our services via Zapier. So I'd encourage you guys to take a look there. Second, you want to be able to send the right content, right? So we've talked about some things you can do for voicemail drops, some things you can do with sending some messages to people in your database, how to use texting. We've covered a little bit of that. I think what I'd like to do next is a little screen share of my own, so I can show you some social media posts that you guys can just grab and use yourselves. Like, you just steal this stuff and use it on social media. So let me fire my screen share up here. Chris, are you seeing that all right?
Yeah, that looks good.
So I'm logged into my Happy Grasshopper account now. And in the social media content area, our writing staff posts all sorts of posts. This is all refreshed once every 2 weeks. And there's a ton of things in here. Now, my school of thought is that we want to start conversations on social media. It doesn't always have to be about real estate, right? We've put a lot of inspiring quotes in the system right now because I believe now is a time when people need to see some inspiring words. I want to put that message out into the world. So now I'm going to scroll up and we're going to take a look at some listing generating posts, things you can post that will create these conversations that can lead to listings. So
good looking images too.
Well, thank you. All right, so I'm going to come up here to the top. We're going to look at this first one. The content reads, research time. Who wants to participate? Rating on a scale between 1 and 10, how likely would you be to sell your current home if I told you I had a buyer ready to pay you an acceptable price for it? Right?
That's pretty solid.
So who's going to engage on that kind of post other than people who are interested in selling? Right? Maybe they'll tell you 0. That's okay. They don't want to sell at all. You know, at least you know that. But you know, those people who who are in your social feed, they know what you do for a living. Notice that there's no real estate branding in here, right? We're trusting the Facebook algorithm to put this in front of people who know us. And, you know, a lot of us have friends that are spread out all over the country, especially in the re.net. So, you know, you want to make sure that you're posting things with a local flair. So part of what we do with our system is we give you copy up here, which you could just copy. And then of course you can download the image, or you can use your own. That's totally fine.
I see. So yeah, so personalizing it makes a lot of sense, because you wouldn't want to have a palm tree picture in the mountains, right? So,
yeah, exactly right. If there's snow on the ground and you've got a beach shot, that's probably a mistake.
That snow melted yesterday, Dan.
It's June, sure, but you know, why not have snow in Colorado? Seems reasonable.
Yeah, that makes sense to have that be switched out. I like that.
So this next message, been locked at home a bit too long? I mean, who's feeling that way, right? Probably a lot of us. Are the walls closing in on you? You probably spent more time inside than in a long time. What are 3 things you must have in your next home that your current home doesn't have? Okay. Right? So we want to, again, start the conversation on real estate related topics, and then we want to have the conversation. So, you know, as people comment publicly, I'm going to recommend that you respond to their reply publicly, because that's teaching the algorithm at Facebook that, you know, conversation is taking place here. This is someone whose message we want to expose to more people, share with more people. And then you also want to private message that person. Hey, I saw you responded to my post, Chris. Thank you. What's going on? How have you been?
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
Have some conversation, reestablish some rapport, and then ask, you know, if you can help them sell their home.
So because they've engaged with your content, it's kind of a social contract. It's okay to reach out to them and DM them directly,
Totally
private
fine.
message them directly. Yeah.
Totally fine.
And do you find that people react to these type of things with complete seriousness, or is it sometimes humorous, or like how are people kind of engaging with this in general?
Well, it's going to depend on the post. I mean, we have some downright silly stuff in here too. Like, I mean, believe it or not, that's Thomas Jefferson's bed.
There's lots of jokes there. Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
I don't know about that, but it's weird for sure. It's weird for sure. Like, you know, a post like this, like, you know, I know about Pokemon from my kids, right?
Okay, sure.
I played the Pokemon game there a few years ago.
Sure, I believe it, but I don't know that everyone in the audience believes it.
Yeah, it's okay. The point, guys, is that you're going to get the sort of response you get based on the rapport you have with the people in your audience. If I were, say, something really buttoned down, like a patent attorney or a tax attorney, and I'm posting stuff like this, there's a disconnect there, right? If I'm known as like a guy who wears plaid all the time, and all of a sudden I'm in polka dots and stripes, that might be a little weird to the people who know me. So part of the reason you see this variety of posts here is because we want our members to have the option of finding something that feels right for them. Okay, it's, you know, just a good rule of thumb that if the content that you're considering posting you don't personally like, you should probably post something different. Which, by the way, Chris, that's the #1 reason we exist as a company. Like, the world is full of CRM tools, so we don't really need another one. But the CRM content, gosh, the messaging in most of those systems is just horrible.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, people like the way it organizes their contacts, but they can't stand the messaging that it would send out. So
I worked
to fill that gap.
I helped a company that was in the direct mail space exclusively years and years ago. And at the time they were still doing the postcards with the brownie recipes. And I am shocked, but I still get that nonsense. It's just terrible. And on top of that, there's a lot of stuff that goes around that's automated, that's just completely tone deaf to the times that we're in. So I really think that the thoughtful nature of the inspirational quotes and kind of, hey, this is what's going on in the world, and incorporating that into your marketing is important, because being tone deaf right now and sending out stuff that could potentially be damaging.
Not okay. Sure.
Not okay.
We have a Facebook group we created called What to Say Now. And the whole reason for this group to exist is to help people through these conversation issues. Um, you know, I consider myself, for example, like let's just talk about the issue, right? You may have noticed I'm a white guy. Did that happen? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Not everybody notices that, right?
okay. Thanks for clarity.
You know, what that means is that I've been raised in a privilege that other people have not been. Like my life is positively dripping with privilege. And that's despite the fact that I wasn't raised in a great environment. You know, my parents were alcoholics. We moved all the time. There was a lot that wasn't easy. And yet, just by the virtue of the color of this, you know, I've been given advantages that other people just don't have, right? So now is a time when it's just not acceptable to not acknowledge that.
For sure.
You know, it's a time for us all to kind of turn inward a little bit and say, you know, maybe I can't stand on the sidelines anymore. Maybe I have to actually step into the conversation and say, I don't want the world to be like this anymore. So I've got to do something to help change it, right? So in What to Say Now, it's a place where people post their questions about how to have a conversation. You know, what can I send? How can I say this? Here's the situation. They describe it, and either myself or my staff of writers, we go in there and we help answer those questions. So that's kind of a fun place, guys. So if anybody needs any help with messaging, please just find us on Facebook. We're in facebook.com/groups/whattosaynow, and it's totally free.
Now, do you have writers
Also,
that are helping respond to that? Is that you responding? Is it both?
it's myself and my team of writers.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
there's
really
more
cool.
there than one person can handle, and I've got a really talented team, so I love that they pitch in there as well.
That's a really neat. I'm glad you're doing that. That's very cool.
Well, thank you, and thank you to Maya for posting that there in the chat. Appreciate it.
There it is.
Yeah, ding. So Chris, let's talk about data detox, right? You know, I've just talked about a free resource Happy Grasshopper can provide. I want to make sure they know what to do to help to get help from REValuate.
So I'm going to share this URL real quick, and maybe Maya can put this into the chat as well. But basically what we talked about earlier is are we good? Is the detox process. So what we're offering is with this URL, you can upload any list that you have of email addresses of whatever nonsense you have.
Mm-hmm.
And we will very, very quickly turn around and remove the profanity emails, remove the Airbnbs, remove the other real estate agents, remove all of that nonsense that's not valid, so that you have a really clean CSV as an export from that then you can go and do any of your other marketing. Dan talked about, you know, getting essentially blacklisted by using bad data, and if you're sending messages to the wrong people and to bad addresses, that's a very significant issue. And if you're wasting money on marketing to people that don't exist or Daffy Duck, you know, we can help you out with that. This will clean up the Daffy Ducks from your database. So
a little more clarity there. Like, technically, what happens when you send an email to an address that doesn't really exist, it's called a hard bounce, right? And if you as a marketer are sending to lots of people that don't exist, it's telling the internet service providers who deliver your messages that you don't have a clean list, right? And guess who doesn't have clean lists? Spammers. So you get lumped in with that group of people, and that sort of activity causes your deliverability to plummet. I mean, it really makes a big impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely do not want to be engaging in that kind of behavior.
So REValuate works, all of our scoring is based on email addresses. So I don't need social security numbers, right? Or bank accounts or anything. Like, I don't need your name or physical address. All I need all we need are email addresses. And so this is a core function of REValuate, because we know that we're going to be scoring those contacts for you and telling you who's most likely to move, and want to start with a clean database. So
Yeah, awesome. So
go ahead.
There's a great question coming in from Greg.
Yeah.
He's asking about your use policy concerning these emails that are uploaded for detoxing. For example, do you retain any right to distribute, to use, to mine those emails in any way? And how soon after they're uploaded are they fully deleted from all your systems? I love that question.
Wow.
Awesome.
Right into it. So the terms of service on this are on the footer of REValuate's website on every page. So we definitely don't hide that information. We actually are we've built a product that we believe to be future proof, in that we watched what happened in the EU with the right to be forgotten and with data privacy. And we watched what's happening in California and the direction that that's going. And we know that in time, that is going to go across the entire United States and become law. And so we have been very careful about building this product in such a way as to make it future-proof. So yes, we're complying with all existing rules and regulations and laws, and taking it a step further and going to the direction of, hey, we want to be overly cautious on this. To that note, there is data that we deal with that is allowed to be shared and used and displayed that we ethically don't believe should be shared and used and displayed. In other words, if I knew that Bob was getting a divorce, I'm going to use that information and plug it into my score, because divorces definitely drive the decision to move. But we're not going to display the fact that Bob is getting a divorce in any way. The worst case scenario is that someone would pick up the phone and say, hey, Bob, sorry to hear about the divorce.
Yes.
And Bob goes,
times 11. I mean, that is absolutely a horrible approach.
Terrible. And the worst case scenario is that Bob says, what now?
Yeah.
So if Bob wasn't served, yeah,
what?
And didn't know he was getting a divorce. So we're trying to avoid litigious situations. I think that's in general what most of us ought to be doing, is avoiding lawsuits. So that's the direction we go. We delete everything as soon as the account closes. And for sure, I think I answered those questions. But was it Greg? Is that correct? Greg, you can reach out directly if you'd like to chat about that more. We'd be happy to talk about it.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, at Happy Grasshopper, we've said since day one, your data is your data.
Oh yeah,
it's not ours. Yeah. Those contacts are your contacts, not ours. So we don't share them, we don't email them, we don't do anything with them except deliver the content that we've created for you to them.
Yeah.
Period. Like, I think the fastest way for companies like ours, meaning software as a service companies, to go out of business is to disrespect your data.
Yeah, we've been fortunate, Dan, in that in our years, we started working with individual agents, then we did teams and brokers and brands. And then the brands said, hey, would you work on the mortgage side of things? And of course, they're regulated with a whole different set of rules. Right. And we said, well, we don't know if we'll work on the mortgage side, but let's give it a shot. So we did it, and it worked great. And we comply with those rules. In addition, it's all one product, all turnkey, the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. The mortgage businesses, we're now in all 50 states with our large banks and lenders that do this stuff. That led to some channel partnerships. That led to some advertising agencies using this stuff. So yeah, we're trying to keep everything cool and clean and working smoothly for everyone, for sure, so we can stay in business.
Well, super cool. Super cool. So guys, we're coming up to the top of the hour here. I really appreciate everybody attending today. And Chris, thank you. Not many people are willing to be my friend, but you, sir, you are. So I appreciate that.
I'm happy to step up the plate for you and pretend like we're friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Ouch. All right. So here's what's up. Those of you who are attending this live, thank you very much for being here. Do not forget to follow that link. Go to, and I can't see the link right now. It's revaluate.com/detox, right? You want to go there and get your list cleaned up. And of course, if you need help with content, you need help delivering messages, Happy Grasshopper's here for you. Just go to happygrasshopper.com or join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/what-to-say-now. Chris, do you have any parting words you'd like to leave our audience with?
Man, thanks for allowing me the time to hang out with you, Dan. It's always a pleasure. And guys, if there's a way that we can help you out, feel free to come over to REValuate. We have our chat tool there with our customer care people are standing by, so you can ask questions via the REValuate.com chat tool right now. If you have any further questions, Dan, thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Great to see you, Chris. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
great day. Bye.